Let's talk about branding.
Welcome to the Man Cave.
Hey everyone. So I wanted to jump into this thing about branding because something I saw on X that made me think. Branding is important, especially if you want to have some sort of online persona or presence. I'm branding. I wear my various caps that are usually Detroit or military themed because that's part of my life. That's where I developed and came from. I do it in this spot. I call it the Man Cave or Commando Alley. That's another story. But I recognize that it's something that if that's who you want to be, if you want people to see something or hear something and immediately think of you, that's branding. And I don't have a problem with that. And I'm not here to bitch about branding, but what I am here to kind of bitch about is, and before I go any further, yes, I'm wearing my Spartan hats. My boy's lost, but Spartan strong all day long. I'm going to be a Spartan till I die. And I'm not just one of those guys who jump on the bandwagon. I'm still a Spartan. So anyway, I saw this guy and he's an African American, and he is MAGA, and he lives, eat, and breathes MAGA. And I come across him every once in a while, and his stories vacillate between I did this MAGA event, MAGA did this, or this news article, and to him bemoaning being an African American MAGA. And today or yesterday, whatever it is, I saw it today, and he posted something about a friend of his who, out of clear blue sky, discovered his account and just, I'm done with you. I can't mess with MAGA. I hate you or whatever, and don't call me anymore. And he's like, let me have my coffee and all that kind of stuff. He's so jarred by this, and that's his brand. And like I said, I don't have a problem with people branding themselves. You got to identify with something, but there is a point of, and I think honestly, this is my problem. I'm basically talking to myself. People who see this are probably people that I know. Unless I'm hit the algorithm somehow, I don't really get to a lot of people. And I'm okay with that because my purpose is not to make money. My purpose is to promote my books. And I hope you see them behind me and get interested in a book about African American private detectives in the city of Detroit and the adventures they have. But I'm not interested in making money. I'm not interested in having thousands of fans and promoting ideas and trying to influence you to buy things and stuff like that. I'm just here to I'm just a guy talking to other people, whoever I come across. But this guy, that's not his point. He's obviously puts a lot of effort in that. And I don't know this guy. I never met him. I don't know much about him. I think he's military. But this thing of being MAGA, and I'm not going to get into politics of it. It's the kind of thing that people gravitate to or say things about because it elicits a certain response. If you say you're MAGA, people respond a certain way, and that's just the way it is. Right, wrong, or indifferent, people respond to the word MAGA in a certain way. And I said that before. I remember the first time I saw a guy in the wild, as it was, with a MAGA hat on, and it just struck me because I'd never seen it before. I mean, I've seen it on videos and on TV, but never actually seen a person walking around talking with a MAGA hat on. And I feel like this particular point in our American history and our American political discourse and thought has brought us to this place where it's either or. Everything is either or. And I talk a lot about Star Trek and Starfleet Academy and how everything is like this thick line and you're on one side or the other and there's no kind of like, well, how about this? Everything is, no, you're either for or against me and that's it. And if you're not for me, you're evil. I mean, in some cases, literally evil. And I think some of this has been promoted by the idea and the notion that we've always felt this way. Not to go into a whole history of the nation, but there was hundreds of years of slavery, the Civil War, the Reconstruction period, antebellum, all that kind of stuff. And we get to here, and you either have two um, schools of thought about it. Either that was a long, long time ago and get over it, or that just it's just metamorphosizing into something else as time goes by. We haven't gotten over. And that's my personal experience because I'm African American. But it applies to other people who are Asian, who are gay, who are transgender, whatever. And we never really get to a point where it's like in our national consciousness, it's like you can be that and I can be that, and that's okay. It's always whatever this is bad. And I know for a fact that there are people who don't feel like that. I've met them. I think that, to paraphrase Agent K in Men in Black, it's like a person is rational. You can talk to a person, you can tell a person something, but people are crazy. People, when they get together, they get clannish. They get in their corners. They claim their tribe. And so I'm not sure what's going on with this guy. I do feel like it is a hard sell to portray yourself as an African American MAGA. I think that movement has done a lot to show publicly, and this is not me being hyperbolic or anything, but publicly saying that they don't particularly care for certain people or certain races or certain places. And so this brand of "I'm Black MAGA" is immediately draws attention because you're like over here, you're a purple dinosaur that no one can figure out. Now automatically gets attention. And I don't know. I can't say that honestly because I don't know this guy, but it does feel unnatural. It doesn't seem like it's like if someone tells you to go away and you keep coming, it's kind of like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you so interested in this place that they keep pushing you out of, that you keep trying to get in? And people don't all feel this way. I know people who are MAGA and they feel very strongly about this. There is this feeling of, I think, beyond any kind of racism or xenophobia that is often, rightly or wrong, contribute with that movement. There is a feeling of displacement of what we, being MAGA, think of as America is being taken away from. And I guess people are allowed to feel that way, but it's like, well, how do you respond to this? What is your way to get this idea across? And can you do this without hurting other people? And I feel this guy because one of the things about this, you're okay, I'm okay, which is different, is that you have to kind of, and I think this is something that in this MAGA argument in particular, and just in our national discourse, is that I want you to look at yourself as a MAGA and recognize all the things that are wrong. And I'm supposed to do the same thing, but I need you to own it, and I need you to talk about it. I need you to apologize about it, but not me. One of the things that comes to mind with that is this idea of the Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm troubled by the Black Lives Matter. The notion of it makes sense, and I know what they're saying. Black Lives Matter, and you're saying that in the context of it really hasn't mattered, and that's been my experience through my lifetime. That being black carries a certain weight that being white doesn't. And, you can believe that just and not believe it. If you don't believe it, that's fine. I mean, I don't hate you or anything. I just disagree with you. I'm ready to move on. But there is the organization, and it's like, what are they doing? And then there's just the very visible thing of rioting and destroying things. I, as an African American, and have grown up in Detroit and understand that world and lived it and talked about it and seen my elders and people who are my counterparts and people who are coming up behind me, not just somebody who just, well, I read about it or I saw a special on HBO or something. I mean, it's in my DNA, literally. And so I understand that notion of, well, I get why those people did that. And I do. I get it. I understand it. But I can't justify it. I lived in Chicago during the riots for about, was it Rodney King? No, George Floyd. I'm sorry. And I saw that aftermath. And I was talking to a friend who actually lived like in that. And she was a black girl. And she was like, I'm terrified. I won't leave my house. So how can I measure that against a living, breathing person I know and had life experiences with against an ideal that is doing harm to their own community? It's not an easy thing to walk. But I'm not ready to pick up a MAGA hat either because, they have flaws. And, it's almost this, is it the devil kind of thing. And I it's an ongoing discussion because it's not, and I think this is the biggest divide between various ideals and everything. It's not a point in history. It's not something that you say, I feel like this. It's your whole life, every day. And there are events that you get together and you talk about with, that I remember that time 30 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday, when this happened to me. Why did that happen? And people will, yeah, I get it, because I remember when that happened to me. So it's not just this kind of thing where something happens. It's like, oh, I'm not this thing anymore. And I guess MAGA is the same way. I I have to reasonably acknowledge that they feel a certain way, but I don't agree with it. I mean, just this whole thing of being replaced is like, you brought us here and you ask millions of people from all over the world to come here, and this moving scale of what white is and all this kind of stuff. So, I get the guy. I get where he's coming from as far as, he's identifying his self, but and that's his brand. But I can't acknowledge that I can't be with it because it is a thing of that's not the reality I've ever seen or anything. What do you guys think? That's my dog making her presence known. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about MAGA? How do you feel about branding yourself? How do you feel about brands that don't really make sense? What's your brand? Is your brand tied to your ideology? Is it your sports team or your hometown or whatever? Comment below.